In today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about AirAsia, right? AirAsia X. And they have decided to go for some rights issue. Next question is this right issue, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Is it a not so good thing? You know, there's a lot of speculation out there. And when I was reading the newspaper reports, it wasn't so friendly to read newspaper reports. In fact, after reading newspaper, I got even more confused when I was trying to get data with regards to this rights issue. So I guess in this episode, we're just going to talk a little bit about what is a rights issue, right? Followed by how it will impact all the stakeholders. And finally, what should we all do with regards to this rights issue? Okay, so with regards to what is a rights issue, in a nutshell, a rights issue is basically how a company raises money to run its operation. So for a company to run its operation, right, we learn this over in accounting. This is a double entry, right? Assets is what the company needs to run the overall operation, equals to liability plus equity, right? So over here, what this basically means is that in order for us to buy assets, we need to actually either borrow from the bank or it needs to come from equity. So owner's equity could be in the form of we as the owner, if we are sole proprietor. But in this case, if it's a listed company, it will come from IPO or raising money via shares, right? So basically what a rights issue is that you would enable the company to raise money from the equity portions, meaning to say you will raise money from the current shareholders, right? So motivation for this rights issue is basically at this point in time, as I mentioned to you guys in the earlier episodes with regards to what's happening in the airline industry, is that the airline industry right now, they have been grappling with a lot of high operational costs, right? If you look at AirAsia, they have relatively high operational costs, and as I mentioned to you, you know, if you are an airline, you basically need to have aircrafts, you need to have aircraft engineers, you need to have, you know, your workforce. So it's actually high operating cost, and so the fixed cost is relatively high for an airline industry. And when the revenue drops, when there's not much of flights which is happening, what basically happens is, as I highlighted to you guys during AirAsia's third quarter results, they made losses of about 1 billion, right? And total accumulated losses for AirAsia is about 3 billion, right? We did not cover AirAsia X. So AirAsia X is different from AirAsia, whereby AirAsia does the whole Asian and ASEAN region, and AirAsia X actually does a bigger scope or bigger area, right? So basically, as we know, the airline industry as a whole has been suffering from, I guess, a drop in revenues, and also with a drop in revenues, as I mentioned to you, if you have a high operating cost, what's going to happen is it's going to eat into the profit. Or right now, many of these guys are operating at a loss. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why AirAsia X actually needed to find different ways to raise capital. And one of the ways to actually raise capital is either borrowing from bank. I think in earlier newspaper reports, we can see that they have been actively trying to look for ways to borrow money from the bank. And there's another way, which is raising capital via equity. So this rights issue is a way to raise money via equity. Okay, so let's talk about the impact of rights issue for the company and for the shareholders. So from the company's point of view, if you raise capital via rights issue, what is basically going to happen is that you're going to actually see an increase in your equity, meaning to say there are more people or more shareholders are pumping in money into the company via rights issue. So AirAsia X is going to issue rights issue to shareholders, and it's up to us whether we want to buy. If we opt to buy the rights issue, that money will go into AirAsia X. and AirAsia X will have a bigger amount of cash, which will be used for their overall operation, right? So in terms of AirAsia X, they're going to have an increase in cash should the rights issue be successful, right? In terms of shareholders, however, in terms of us, if we are owners for that particular, for AirAsia X, assuming if I and you, right, we are two shareholders and we have some stake in this company, maybe ABC. So this is an example, right? Company ABC used to make profits of 100 ringgit, right? So if we have ownership of 50-50, what's going to happen is I take 50 ringgit and you take 50 ringgit. Right now with rights issue, what's going to happen is there's going to be dilution, meaning to say there's going to be more shares which are going to be issued. So when there is more shares being issued, what will basically happen is that the earnings per share would drop. So assuming if ABC made 100 ringgit this year and ABC company made 100 ringgit the next year, before this it was only two shareholders or two shares outstanding. Right now with the rights issue, there are more shares outstanding. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a dilution in earnings. So although ABC as a company may still record the same amount of profits, but in terms of the earnings per share, since there is a lot more dilution or a lot more shares outstanding, what's going to happen basically is that the earnings per share will drop. Okay, so if you look at it from the formula, right, is earnings divided by shares outstanding. Okay, so that is I guess not so good. So that's the first con, I guess. The second thing is that when we issue or when AirAsia X issues a right issue, at this point in time, we still don't know the issuance price or the price that they want to offer that particular rights to the market, right? We still don't know yet. But typically speaking, from my previous experience and also reading through a lot of internet literature, the consensus is rights issue tends to be cheaper than the current stock. So I'm going to repeat that. Rights issue tends to be cheaper than the current stock. And why would AirAsia X sell the rights for cheaper than the current stock? Basically, is to get shareholders to actually buy the rights issue. Okay, so if it's more than the current stock price, you know, we think to ourselves like, why do you want to buy the rights issue since it's a bit more than the current stock price? But if it's less or discounted, we are more inclined to buy that particular rights issue. So what may happen is that, and if we look at the AirAsia stock price, we saw AirAsia X stock price from 11 cents, it dropped to 10 cents. And yeah, there's some news with regards to some people not being too, they don't quite like this particular thing. And one of the reasons why is that if the rights issue is issued at a discounted price, what will happen is that the current stock price may kind of drop, right? To actually show the sentiment lah. So it's more of market sentiment. Okay. So overall, in terms of the business, what is going to happen is that if the business gets more money into their coffers, this will enable them more ammunition to fight or to float during this COVID season. Okay. But having said that, normally when people do rights issue, is actually to maybe, I mean, if you do a rights issue, say to a company or to buy a new machine or to buy a new shop, what's going to happen is there's going to be an increase in earnings, and with the dilution, so sometimes we expect the earnings to offset the dilution, right? But for the AirAsia X point of view, they are increasing the amount of cash in their coffers to enable them to stay afloat. That's the difference, right? So whether it's a good thing, whether it's not so good thing, I already have given my views many times with regards to this company. But if you can see, AirAsia has actually, if we actually were good traders for this particular stock. I think AirAsia actually doubled the money, doubled twice during this particular COVID crisis, right? So my take is that AirAsia, at this point in time, whether they are not making that much of profits at this point in time. So yeah, so they're not making that much of profits at this point in time. So if we want to invest in that particular stock, we should kind of look at it as a trading as a trading part of our portfolio. Remember my earlier episodes on how I talked about having a core dividend trading value, and also I talked about all of these categories with regards to investing. If you want to invest in a stock, don't miss out on the volatility. Rather, we should play on the volatility. So at this point in time, if you think that this stock is maybe too expensive, look towards hiving off. And once the stock drops in terms of a certain price, look towards buying it. As I mentioned to you guys, break your investment up into 10 buckets. We can never time the investments. So that's my take on AirAsia X. Should you guys have any questions, I guess I'll open it up for 2-3 seconds. Okay, so there's no questions. Yeah, I'm still, this whole thing is very new to me. So I hope you enjoyed the daily episodes of Rambling of an Analyst. I think I'm going to come up with another episode very, very soon. Actually, I have 5 episode ideas with regards to Rambling of an Analyst. The next would be talking about the year-end rally. And normally when I'll going to talk about why the market tends to rally towards the end of the year. Hey Krishnan, how are you? Thank you for saying a little hello. At least I know I'm not the only one talking here. So yeah, I'm going to come up with another video on the year-end rally. And what this year-end rally means is that towards the end of the year, every year, towards the end of December, the stock market tends to move up. I'll talk to you why it happens, since I'm part of the industry, and what is the motivation for a year-end rally. Okay, that will be the next episode. Okay, so the question over here is it okay to keep hold of AirAsia stock? So, like I said, with regards to AirAsia, I have a trading call on it. So I would basically trade on AirAsia. Okay, at this point in time, it's RM1, right? And it's riding on the positive sentiment, which is riding the market. So what's the positive sentiment riding the market right now is that Malaysia is already opening its borders, right? And AirAsia actually even shot up even higher. But when I'm looking at the number of COVID cases right now, right, it looks and how the SOP is macam quite tidak apa lah. So when I went all around during this weekend, I was going around out of Selangor. It looks very tidak apa. I'm afraid that the COVID cases may increase and there be another lockdown. So that's one of the reasons why I keep saying trade this particular stock. Buy it in 10 increments and sell it in 10 increments. If you have a good price, so Krishnan, to answer you in short, right? If you have a good price, look towards hiving it off. But don't hive it off all one shot. Play the market, like I said. You can never time it up going up, and you can never time it going down. So that's one of the reasons why I always have this thing. Break it up into 5 buckets, break it up into 10 buckets. It's up to you. So at least you enjoy, the upside of the stock. If you manage to enjoy some upside, or if the stock actually appreciated higher than what you initially invested in that stock. Okay. Also bear in mind that when it comes to trading costs, right, there's also trading costs with regards to going in and out the stock too often. So if you're only buying 1 or 2 shares, right, also there's not. So on one hand, I said break it up into a couple of buckets. On the other hand, if you're only trading on 1 or 2 shares, right, sometimes the trading costs will eat into the profit. So that's something we also have to take care of. All right, guys. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for being a live audience. I'm going to come back very soon. I'm going to talk about the year-end rally. Yeah, with that, thanks for the thanks for the question, Bus Current, and I hope to see you guys very soon. Okay, with that, take care.